Hi, welcome to the FoodSense Generation 4 weekly webinars. We like to do this to really help clients. If clients have technical questions, then we like to do this weekly webinar. I will be doing a demonstration shortly of the FoodSense Generation 4, so you can expect to see this in action. In fact, I'll put a chili sensor on this now in preparedness for that. But that said, I'll go forward with the main thrust of the webinar. So every week, if people have questions, or rather, if you are a FoodSense Generation 4 customer, you can expect personal online training. We do weekly webinars, so somebody is a client of FoodSense Generation 4, they have some technical questions, we'll answer them in these weekly webinars. Because it's not just answering the questions here, we like to illustrate the answer with, with graphics and with data. So, people will email us, but in fact, the response will come to this weekly webinar because, in fact, me illustrating it will make the answer, let's say, clearer. We do monthly webinars, so if you're interested in FoodSense Generation 4 or you're looking to train further people on FoodSense Generation 4, just know that the weekly webinar, the next one is on the 26th of September 2024. And if you click the link after that date, don't worry, because we keep updating the link with the next one in the series. So we do one in the morning, one in the afternoon. The one in the morning works really well for Australia, Indonesia, India, Singapore, Malaysia, etc. And the one in the afternoon works well for South America, North America, Central America, for example. And both of them work well for Europe. Because we're in a quite good time zone where actually we can serve both by just doing one in our morning, one in our afternoon. That said, click the link and register. We are used to handling an awful lot of different types of samples, from mayos, sauces, oils, powders, oleo resins, fresh chilies. You name it, we've more or less handled it. I think that's one of the flexibilities of this instrument. It's fairly low cost. It's definitely simple to use. It is fast, certainly in its testing. And it's actually very good at handling quite complex samples. And you'll see that a bit this afternoon. Now I'm going to go to the question itself. So somebody's got something called the devil pepper. It has a high content of capsaicin. Peppers, powders, and oleo resins, they generally are solid or semi-solid, and they have the capsaicin bound in that solid phase. We want to get it out of the solid phase into what we call the liquid phase. This is a buffer that comes with the system, and we want to extract into this buffer. But when you're trying to get from the solid phase to the liquid phase, sometimes that extraction can take a little bit of time. So what these people are witnessing is, if they do an extraction for a short period of time, they get one answer, and if they do extraction for a longer period of time, they get a higher answer. And I'm going to show you in a minute that yes, you are extracting more and more capsaicin with time, but there is a plateau where you're no longer extracting, and we try to aim for that plateau. So yes, the extraction process is probably still ongoing, because if they do a first result and get an answer, do a second test later on and get a higher answer, then you are still extracting. And I would suggest that the second extraction was more reliable. Of course, if you test the third one and it's still going up, then you're still extracting. So here the customer is the right kind of customer for us, because actually they want really a reproducible manner, that action that they can rely upon. They're not so much concerned about full extraction. They want to get a sample, they want to test it, they want to be understanding that they got consistency of product. So when you're more interested in consistency of product, then probably precision is more interesting to you than accuracy. So we do have an SOP for testing chili powders. That SOP will describe how we take a chili powder, 0.01 grams, and we'll put it in 10 mils of buffer, and that will give us a 1 in 1,000 dilution. And we put it on a rocker. So the rocker just rocks this sample, and we will actually do it for 24 hours. I can understand if somebody wants to be quicker, they don't want to do it for 24 hours. And that's when you start to compromise on accuracy. But you're trading essentially, you want a fast answer, so therefore you're saying, all right, I'm not so much interested in accuracy, but I do want a fast answer. But of course you do want precision. You don't want a sort of random answer. You want a precise answer. So let me just talk about this a little bit. So we take a tube like this, about 15 milliliter tube. We put in 0.01 grams. We put in 10 mils of buffer above that. And we want the capsaicin to come out of there. Well, to encourage it, we shake this thing around for quite a long time. When I say shake it around, we've got We've got one of these rockers in our facility, and we will rock it for that time period. At the end of which then, or rather what's happening in that process is the capsaicin is coming out over time. But it will plateau because there's some point at which you've set up an equilibrium with the solid phase and you've extracted as much capsaicin as you possibly can. Now, in our SOP, we say wait 24 hours. The reason I put 500 Scoville heat units here is because we think that the maximum concentration of capsaicin in a chili maximum concentration of chili in the buffer, I shouldn't say chili, I should say capsaicin, is about 500 Scoville heat units. That's why we use the 1 in 1,000 dilution with chili powders. So let's say the chili powder was 500,000 Scoville heat units. By doing a 1 in 1,000 dilution, essentially we're going to be extracting at most 500 Scoville heat units because of that 1 in 1,000 dilution. So there's a moment where, in fact, you do not extract any more capsaicin, it comes to equilibrium. Now we say if you wait 24 hours, that's a very safe bet. You know, very hard to imagine that you're still extracting after 24 hours. But of course, you know, you may not want to wait 24 hours. You know, you may want to wait 12 hours. So you could wait 12 hours and probably still be on the plateau. It's just for us sometimes when we're trying to help people with accuracy, 24 hours gives us plenty of time. Now, just compare this with HPLC. With HPLC, you've still got to make up that sample, send that sample out. That sample's going to take a long time to come back, or the results going to take a long time to come back, and it's going to be expensive to have done that. So this is still a faster method than other, let's say, methods, and definitely lower cost. So what we do after that 24 hours then is we take 50 microliters out of that and we put it onto the FoodSense Generation 4. I happen to have one in front of me, and we test and we get a result. I think, yeah. So in that case, what happens then is the app will actually give you back the answer, which the true answer is 500,000 Scoville heat units, because the app will actually ask you what your dilution was. In this case, it was 1 in 1,000. So even though we may have measured 500 Scoville heat units, the app may have actually measured 500 Scoville heat units on the instrument itself. It knows what the dilution was, and therefore it back calculates to give you the true answer in the original sample, for example. Right. It says here I'm going to do a demo, and I am going to do a demo, but I just want to give you a bit of a backstory on this. Just FYI, these kind of artisan hot sauces, we often find now we do a 1 in 100 dilution for these. If it's a hot sauce in the supermarket, they're not that hot actually, and we often do a 1 in 10 dilution. But if they're hot sauces that some small producer is producing, then they tend to sort of make them hotter for the more niche end of the market, and they do tend to require a higher dilution. So this is Badger X, or Badger X. When I first did a 1 in 10 dilution, that's this sample here. The app is quite smart. It actually said too high, dilute more. The too high means too much capsaicin. The dilute more means, in this original case, I did what's called a 1 in 10 dilution, and it's basically telling me that's not diluted enough. And then the upload complete means it actually sent the data to the cloud. So I had a look at the data in the cloud, and I could see that actually this is the capsaicin signal. Flat line like that means, yeah, there's capsaicin's basically gone out of the scale of the instrument. We've got beautiful capsaicin peaks, as we call this peak 1, peak 2, and peak 3. They're beautiful. There's a real good fingerprint for it. And this is only a 1 in 10 dilution, but we got quite a large, let's say, signal. So it's definitely pretty hot. And that's a 1 in 10 dilution. So what I'm going to do now is a demo, but I'll just change screens for a second. So I put the sensor in at the beginning of this webinar. I actually took one volume of the 1 in 10 dilution and actually further diluted it by 10x to actually get what's called a 1 in 100 dilution. And it's a 1 in 100 dilution that I will now test. So let me just get that, let's say. In fact, what I'll do now is I'm just going to give this a name, because I can find this data later on then. I give it a name, go to assay 1 in 100. Right, I'll put the sample on and then do the measurement. Here it goes. Right, sample's going on, start measurement, and effectively off we go. So I've got a little progress bar now, so the instrument is actually doing its analysis, and I will get a result shortly. So this takes about I think it takes about 30 seconds. Oh, in fact, hang on. 13 seconds, 12, 11, 10. So it's quite quick to do. The nice thing about this system is that it's also got a little flashing LED at the front here, by the way. That's you can just see the end of my finger sort of flashing on and off. In fact, so it's done. So what I'll now do is it gives me a result on my phone, but it also sends a result also to the cloud as well. So I just want to, I've got my my screen here. I'm just going to do a quick refresh on it, which I am doing. So I get a result on my phone, and I also get a result in the cloud. I'm just going to share my my screen with you. So what I'll do here is just go to screen 2. So I can see my result up in the cloud. Still got a nice intense peak. So this has actually been diluted 100 times. And it's actually really quite a massive, you know, I got this peak here, but it's not flatline. So I knew it didn't go out of let's scope of the instrument. And if it did, the instrument would have told me anyway. We got peak 1, peak 2, and peak 3. These are the capsaicin peaks, and then I can see this peak here. It's intense, despite the fact that we've actually done a 1 in 100 dilution. And the result is also my phone as well. So let me just, 75,000 Scoville heat units. I'll just hold my phone up, and I've realized I want to do this. So there's my answer on my phone as well. So you can see that the actual test is actually quite quick. It's easier to do sources because, in fact, they're already the capsaicin is already kind of quite highly solubilized. If you're going to test an artisan source, you'll often find that actually they do require something like a 1 in 100 dilution, unless the vendors definitively put mild. But I think with these kind of sources, people it's called Badger X. You know, you're expecting something a little bit hotter. So 1 in 100 often works quite well. So let me go back to that, say I completed that demo. So you can see that here I've really done two things this week. I've talked about extraction time, and that if you're still extracting, then yes, you will see the answer go up as the time of extraction increases, but there is a moment when it'll plateau. If you want to be super safe, you can wait 24 hours. I appreciate that doesn't always work for some people's workflow. So things that work for people's workflows are 24 hours is fine. You know, you make it one day, you test it the next day. You could do 8 hours, you know, you make it in the morning, test it in the afternoon, or you could do 4 hours, you make it in the morning, test it midday kind of thing. So I can understand that you have to kind of figure it around the scheduling of the factory. Anyway, I hope that helps. And if you have any questions and you're a FoodSense Generation 4 user, then you can see that we do put some effort into these weekly webinars. Okay, take care. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.